Hello, Wendy.
Hello, Jane.
Welcome to Love Letters, Life, and Other Conversations. So here goes. Here is Anna's love letter. My love letter, which felt like a letter from the universe to this beautiful lady who had taught history and politics for 40 years at my school. She was so much more than a teacher to all of us. Susie Bell, nee Cathclove, had inspired a love of history and most notably of Florence and the Renaissance in generations of schoolgirls. Whilst living in Florence back in 2006, I had many a visitor who all derived their love and longing to save a time spent wandering the pavements of Florence to Mrs. Bell. I was 6 months into my year-long sojourn when I heard through the grapevine that Susie Bell was coming to Florence. Even though I had long left school, catching up with Susie in the city she brought alive to so many felt like a gift and reconnection to this inspiring woman. She was travelling with her dear friend Carol, equally a gorgeous character whom I had known since a child, and they were travelling through Italy on their self-proclaimed Campari tour. I put out the invitation for them to join me for an evening on my terrazzo, and a resounding yes came back. So I threw myself into preparing an evening of reconnection, celebrating all that she had inspired in me and so many others. Aperitivo drinks were sorted, Campari purchased, and then prepared my signature dish of pumpkin pasta with a curried honey and bechamel sauce.
Yum.
With salami and pine nuts, accompanied with a fresh salad. They arrived climbing up the steep steps of Via dell'Angelo, and I could hear their cackles echoing up the stairwell. It was so lovely to be having guests from home and sharing this new chapter of my life. We sat out on my balcony overlooking the Florentine hills. The air was magic that night. It was early September in Florence. The city was busy with locals again, and here we were on my balcony sharing our dreams, our tears, our lives, and so much more. I was in Florence studying painting, a newly discovered passion, and one which I was truly throwing myself into, a world of the unknown. I was vulnerable in this newfound passion and found myself sharing these new layers with Susie and Carol. I had an easel on my balcony of a Tuscan landscape I had been painting for class, which caught the attention of Susie. She stared into the painting, then held onto my arm and shared with me, "Follow this gift. It's a gift. And live this for all of us where it's too late for us to go." In that moment, it was as if time stood still and a gentle breeze wrapped itself between Susie and I. I said to her, "This life I'm living was inspired by you. If those seeds came from you years ago, surely you can live your dreams." She looked puzzled. I couldn't believe I was putting her on the spot, encouraging her to unearth her secret dreams. The teacher, the woman, she stated my dream would be to live in Florence, walking the cobblestone laneways, studying Dante and the Italian language from passionate scholars, and visiting the hidden gardens on afternoon strolls. In that moment, listening to Susie, I felt shivers in my body and eyes began watering, somehow being graced with something sacred, knowledge that I could one day bring forth. 4 years later, and now not living in Florence, I heard Susie was retiring from the school she had taught at for over 40 years. She was bookending her teaching career by flying to Italy and heralding in her next life chapter. What rose in my being were the words Susie shared on my balcony in Florence. So I began carefully curating her Florentine experience, all focusing on a deep dive into Dante's Divina Commedia and visiting the sites in which he wrote this almost sacred text. I met with the professors to discuss how they could tailor a curriculum for Susie, one on language, the other on Dante, and the canvas of Florence. Any secret places that Dante visited or drew inspiration from were woven into her curriculum, with an apartment organized, course curated, also loosely, so she could add more or less what she wanted to. We met to present this curated Florentine experience. We met at a local Melburnian favorite called Cafe Latte, and shared a Bellini in celebration of her 40 years and toasting to the next chapter. I pulled out a scroll and gifted her this sacred text. She read it again and again and again, tears and shaking her head. I said to her, decades of girls, now women, are woven into this experience for you. You opened our hearts and souls to the magic of Renaissance Florence. Now it's your time. We hugged so deeply that day. I truly felt the spirit of every girl whose life had been inspired by Susie in that hug. So many tears of joy. I don't have the scroll I wrote, however, somehow that doesn't seem too important anymore. Jane, I just had to share with you this. Maybe it's not what you are after, however, it's the first time I've written this. Susie died about 7 years ago, and I saw her on her deathbed, and she held my hands tightly, thanking me for her Dante's dream come true. I looked into her eyes and shared, it's time to go. I'm here with you, always. When it's time, just close your eyes, feel my hands, like now, and drift. In this wondrous gift I hadn't quite acknowledged. I am a love letter, constantly being written with those who I connect with. I feel this gift is somehow being unearthed in me. You and Wendy gave me permission to explore. Your podcast is truly wonderful at this time in life. I wish you all the success with its unfolding. Holy bajoli, where do we start?
Holy bajoli. Oh my goodness. First of all, thank you. Thank you for, well, thank you, Jane, for reading it. I would never have been able to. I would have been weeping. Secondly, thank you to the beautiful soul that provided this just snapshot of something otherworldly. I loved how the student became the teacher. That
and the student holding the teacher's hand in her last days.
right.
A tiny bit of context,
Please.
for you. So Anna is from Melbourne, where I'm from. She signed up for Mastering the Art of True Hospitality about a week before we started. So we're now in week, they've just received the pre-recorded lesson for week 3.
Okay.
You know how I said in our very first class, there's always an overachiever.
Yes.
And I'm the overachiever. But her sharing and her openness, I mean, I can't really quite believe that she says that she's been given permission to explore, unless it's really been hidden very deeply. I mean, she is a giver. She's incredible in the classes. I just love, and you know, that's the class that I'm doing at the moment. That's
Yes.
all Australians except for Michelle in Canada.
Oh,
And
right.
so I 4 in the morning on a Saturday morning and do it at 5 a.m. so that it's good for both time zones. There's just so much in there. She then goes on, and we might use another one. She sent me something else today from when she first arrived in Florence. And she talks very much about believing in yourself, and her first teacher in Florence said, "Are you a painter?" Anyway, I don't want to go down that track, but it was another example of being given permission to be.
Right. I loved also.
Yes, sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I loved also the duality of what made that meeting in Florence so beautiful was that Anna offered an invitation and Susie accepted. And that there's such, it's a relationship. It's this love story that they have. Susie taught many students, but she had a profound effect on Anna because Anna was open to receive what Susie was willing to share. And there's a responsibility on both sides. And to that point, sweet Joan, who doesn't know Anna, who says, yes.
Carol.
Oh, Carol, sorry. That Carol would come and they're cackling in the hallways and they're just being present. It's so beautiful.
Yeah. And when she has the guts to say to her teacher, "This life I'm living was inspired by you. If those seeds came from you years ago, surely you can live your dreams." She looked puzzled. I couldn't believe I was putting her on the spot, encouraging her to unearth her secret dreams. The teacher, the woman, she stated my dream would be to live in Florence, walking the cobblestone laneways, studying Dante and the Italian language from passionate scholars.
I love her so much.
Living gardens on afternoon strolls. And for her to remember all of that, don't you think that's one of the greatest, I think that is one of the greatest signs of love is when you remember the details.
Yes. Agreed. I absolutely agree. And I think when something is important to you, you do remember.
So it's probably a really great moment, Wendy.
Yes.
To discuss why do you think that you and I connected? I'm not going to say a thing because wasn't going to bring this up, but why do you think that you and I connected the way that we did?
I think there are several elements, but they really come down to the mirror that you hold up for me and what resonates about you are the same things that are in me that other people feel, if that makes sense. I feel so drawn to you and your spirit of welcome and your attention to detail and the way that you authentically connect with people. And when I shared that.
Let's stop there for a minute because I wasn't asking I wasn't asking for applause.
Oh, of course. Not.
No, I'm asking you to think back and tell me what conversation or what moment did you know that we had connected?
I feel like you saw me and I actually felt connected to you the first time I sent you an email and you responded within seconds. And I said, you have mastered the art of hospitality. I feel seen and heard.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now you and I have a shared story as well, don't we?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
So,
I adopted a little girl from China named Amelia.
yes. And that's the story that I was getting at. So, you know, I think there is a point in Anna's story. I feel like when she was brave enough to say to the teacher, what are your dreams? What are your hopes? What are your secret dreams? What would you like to be doing? Which was pretty brave of her, because really, Susie may have been absolutely content with her life as it was. She was obviously a passionate teacher. But I think sometimes when we are brave enough to open up a conversation that isn't as comfortable, and a lot of people won't. But you know, well, when I think it was the first or second, was it Mastering the Arts, or maybe it was cooking?
It was Mastering the Art.
The Arts. And Amelia might have walked past in the kitchen or something, and
Yes.
And I had probably already announced that I was adopted at 6 weeks.
No,
I
no.
hadn't.
You hadn't, not until you saw Amelia.
Okay, so I saw Amelia and then I told you.
Yes.
Right. And you know, that's a connector, because that's a shared story.
Yes.
Me, adopted child, now, you know, obviously a very mature woman.
Yes.
And you as a mother who has adopted. And we've had lots of wonderful conversations about that, haven't we?
Yes, we have.
Interesting conversations about that. And very deep conversations about that, because, you know, it's murky water stuff.
Yes.
There's a lot of people that won't talk about it.
Right.
Someone said to me once, when did you first find out that you were adopted? And I said, I've always known. I've always known. There was not a conversation I can remember. And I asked Mum years ago, you know, when did you first tell me? I think I told you this, didn't I?
Right.
And she said, oh, darling, the day we picked you up from the orphanage, or the foundling home, they called it, and you were in the bassinet on the back seat. No baby seats back in those days, not in the 60s.
Right. There were no baby seats in China.
I can imagine there weren't.
Nope.
She said, we told you that day. And I said, I was 6 weeks old. She said, we told you every single day until the day you understood what that meant.
Yep.
That's why you've always known. And
It's so beautiful.
and it is beautiful. And you shared beautiful moments of Amelia's adoption with me. And you know, and I think when you have a shared story or a shared experience, it makes for an incredible connection.
Agreed.
Anyway, I know that was a little bit off topic, but I think it was on topic because I think that Anna is the sort of person who has the guts to go there.
Right? Agreed. And it takes guts. But she sounds to me like a person who's not available for shallow conversation.
Don't you love that?
I love that.
People that are like that?
Yes. Talk about giving yourself permission.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Beautiful. And I think that Anna is 100% that person. And you and I have had conversations about that as well. You know, there are people that will have the guts to go there.
Right.
And then they retreat.
Right.
About what they've said or run for the Tuscan hills, but not this. Not run for the Tuscan hills. She is 100% giving herself permission to have uncomfortable conversations. It must have been uncomfortable to say to your teacher, to the person that's been your inspiration for moving to Florence.
Right.
And what about your dreams? Tell me about them. You know?
And to that point, for someone who sounded like she didn't know what she could do or that she could follow her dream, she had some pretty specific points.
Oh my Gideon. Go back over those. I couldn't believe I was putting her on the spot, encouraging her to unearth her secret dreams. The teacher, the woman, she stated, my dream would be to live in Florence, walk the cobblestone laneways, study Dante and the Italian language from passionate scholars, and visit gardens on afternoon strolls.
Right. It's beautiful.
And what a gift for her that this beautiful girl that she had taught years before had the guts to open her mouth and say something as ruthless as she did. As ruthless.
I love that. So following your intuition.
So and then you know, Anna goes on to say that in that moment, after listening to Susie, I felt shivers in my body and eyes began watering, somehow being with something sacred, knowledge that I could one day bring forth.
Right. And then that beautiful trip that she curated for this woman. I mean, it's like an avalanche of goodness that was just released because of one action, giving herself permission, her teacher saying yes, and it just put this series of events in motion that have the most exquisite story as a result.
You know, when she said that we met at a local Melburnian favourite called Cafe Latte and
Yes.
shared a... Well, Cafe Latte is one of my favourite restaurants in Melbourne. So, well, synchronicities
yes.
for me as well, because she's a Melbourne girl, and you know, this teacher is obviously from Melbourne as well. And Cafe Latte is not only one of my favourite restaurants in Melbourne, but the second year I was doing the French table, I was coming back and we had just been at Monet's house and garden at Giverny. So you know the day, done it together.
Gorgeous.
And we came to way, and I had, you know, a carload of French table guests. So we're in the minibus, and I could see these people sitting on the front steps. All looked like they were sitting there laughing. And as I got closer, I saw that they all had champagne glasses in their hands. And there was a young kid kicking a football, or soccer ball, I should say, on the front lawn. And I thought, what on earth is going on? We pulled up, and it was the owner of Cafe Latte. His name's Luca. And here is Anna telling me that she and Susie had a Bellini at Cafe Latte, and she presented the scroll there. So, you know, for me this morning, lying in bed.
Right. All the connections.
All these funny little connections. What I would like to discuss now is the big thing that came out of this whole love letter for me was Anna saying, I am a love letter.
Yes.
Constantly being written with those who I connect with. I feel this is somehow being unearthed in me.
It's so beautiful.
So beautiful.
There's so much in there. And and even her words of giving permission, that overarching theme just resonates through the entire story.
Yes. Yes. Your love letter idea is already healing me deeply to this wondrous gift I hadn't quite acknowledged. I know that at the end of each of our podcasts, Wendy, what we like to do is
give our takeaways.
Yes. So, Wendy, what would your 3 takeaways be from Anna's love letter?
Well, I love the concept of the student becoming the teacher. I think that is, it's just so beautiful, and she just followed her intuition, and I loved that. And she didn't try to fit into the relationship that she previously knew.
No.
She was able to step out and do what was right, which was so great.
For their new relationship, her as, I'm thinking was maybe 22 or 23. She might have been younger, but she was no older than that. She was probably younger, to be honest. But she was no longer a schoolgirl. But she was following her own dream, and you know, that takes guts.
Yes, it does.
Never have done that as a straight after school. Never.
right? It's just amazing to think of, I mean, if you're doing those, like we were having a conversation earlier about people that are young, that are just strong and fierce and owning their own present and their future. And it's so beautiful. And they're so
Mm,
young. It's
mm,
like, oh my gosh, their life is going to be amazing
mhm,
because of that. And I
mhm,
think that for Anna as well. And my second takeaway just falls into that of just trusting yourself
mm,
to have a courageous conversation and just see where it goes.
mm, mm. Yes, I think, you know, so many of us have been conditioned
Hmm.
to have courageous conversations, or we've been damaged. We've been,
Right.
and so we're too scared to
Yeah.
have this conversation. Um, okay, my takeaway.
Do tell.
I will never forget the moment that I read her saying, I am a love letter, constantly being written with those who I connect with. I love that. In fact, I'm going to ask her whether I can be a love letter as well. I just love that. I love that she is brave enough to say that. I would never have said it, but I want it
Right.
now. I want to be the person that
Yes.
I am a love letter.
Oh,
I've been
stunning.
called, um, I was called recently quixotic, which I had no idea what it meant.
I don't know what that means either.
It actually has a double entendre. It's one of those double entendre meanings. And I said to the person that said it to me, I had to look it up in the dictionary. They thought was incredibly funny, but it means idealistic, unbusinesslike, romantic, extravagant, starry-eyed, visionary, utopian, perfectionist, unworldly, impractical, unworkable. I said, it's got a double entendre. I don't know that I want to be called quixotic.
Right.
And that person said, well, I only mean it in the most complimentary way. So just look at the complimentary meanings, and that's what I meant.
And that's a beautiful thank you note right there.
It made me think of that when I read that from Anna this morning, because the person that said that to me said, you've got it in spades and it is a compliment.
Yes.
And I would say to Anna, you've got that in spades and that is a compliment. I love that she calls herself a love letter. That's my big takeaway. And
Yes.
other one was, Jane, you and Wendy gave me permission to explore. Your podcast is truly wonderful at this time in life. I love that she feels like she has permission to explore.
Right.
I know you do too, because you and I have spoken about this. And I just think that's wonderful. Permission to explore. And my third takeaway, if I was to say a third thing, it would be that she thinks that our love letter idea is already allowing her to heal deeply to this wondrous gift that I hadn't quite acknowledged. And I love that. I've been thinking about it all day and thinking, I haven't quite acknowledged what is something. I bet we've all got wondrous gifts.
Yes.
That, you know, are deep down and hidden. And until we do the healing and ask the hard questions and have the uncomfortable conversations and walk through murky, muddy waters, that they may not be unearthed.
I definitely agree. And to your point that Anna did as well, is she asked the question. She asked Susie, what is your dream? So obviously Susie had thought about it as we talked about it. She had some pretty detailed.
Wasn't she?
Yes. And sometimes we just need to hear the question, which gives us permission to answer the question, which then gives us permission to act on the answer.
Exactly. Well, Wendy, wasn't that incredible?
It was.
Aren't we lucky?
Yes.
It's like a treasure chest being sent these love letters.
It is, and we're getting so many. It's really amazing.
It's incredible. Everyone's really excited about it. And I'm personally loving it. And I thank you so much for deciding to do this with me. I'm so privileged to be having these conversations with you.
It's such a gift and an honor, and I literally cannot imagine any place else I'd rather be. We have loved this conversation and sharing this love letter with you, and we would like to invite you to send us your love letters. Visit the link in the show notes to send us your letters and to join our email list. See you next week.